Phil. I'm Nilden.
I'm Razz.
I'm gonna bust his ass.
I'm Brandon.
Hello.
I guess that leaves me. I'm some new guy. Let's slide in
I'm
here.
John.
Sit down the back straightaway for the final time.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls.
This is Dirty Sliders Podcast. Let's feed them the right rear.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Dirty Sliders Podcast. We're missing one tonight. He's off playing with the Chiefs. You know how the Navy thing goes on. Thomas, when you see this, we miss you, buddy. We'll see you when you get back. I finally got the technology figured out on my end. Apparently, you got to plug cables in to have internet. Who knew? But tonight, folks, tonight we have awesomeness among us. Taking Thomas's place, if that can be done, the famous microwave. We have the one, the only, Andy Stapp. Let us know what you got going on, Andy.
Patrick's Day, buddy. Happy St. Patrick's Day to y'all as well. And a green deer up on the top. Attaboy, there you go. Thank y'all for letting me come along. And, man, it's cool to fill Thomas's spot on this. I guess I got big shoes to fill or something like that.
No, not
A
really.
big seat because he's
they're
got
pretty
a
small.
Just fine.
Do you like microwaves?
I like what comes out of microwaves. You got to be careful what goes into them, though, right?
Oh, good Lord. And what you're doing when they're cooking.
Good answer. Good answer.
Be careful what you're doing while the microwave's cooking what you got in it, right?
Right. So, Andy, tell us about yourself. Give us a bio on you.
The most unimportant moron in North Carolina. How's that? Does that count?
I don't think that's accurate.
I wouldn't say moron. We're all here.
Well, okay, I'm a racer, so you know I'm not real smart. So that part eliminates a lot of it. I'm Andy Stapp, third generation racer. I have two boys that are fourth generation. My grandfather ran Indy cars in the 30s and 40s. He ran 14 consecutive years at Indianapolis. Dad grew up building sprint cars for championship guys all over the country, USAC, AAA. Between Silver Crown cars, sprint cars, we built some midgets. And then I came along I was born in 64, so I came along in the era of really cool race cars that didn't even have wings on them because we didn't have place to mount wings because it was only a roll bar, not roll cages. So I came along in the proper time of racing when they started out. And later on, I grew up and built and ran my own sprint cars based out of Indiana. We ran USAC All-Star, World of Outlaws. We ran all around, all over the country. And then I broke my neck in Eldora in 88 and ran until 91, but I had headaches and complications and difficulties from that. And then ended up quit driving, put other guys in my race car, hired some pretty cool quite a few different guys. Brad Marvel drove it. Andy Hillenberg climbed in. Bob East drove for us for a while. We had a variety of guys that filled in while I was injured, hurt, and coming back and forth. And then eventually, I learned quickly that when you hire a driver to run your race car, that's like hiring a guy or giving a guy some money to take your wife out to dinner and give her dinner and get her drinks and entertain her all night long. It's just kind of a stupid thing to do. You don't want to have a really cool race car and somebody else get a chance to destroy it. So we gave up on that. But then I moved off and we did Indy cars for just short of 10 years between working for the IndyCar series and a few teams. My last team was Tony Bettenhausen's team. We ran this guy named Stefan Johansson. We made him American, called him Steve Johnson. He was a cool guy. And so we did that for, like I say, about 10 years in IndyCar. And I had this absolute brain dead moment. I had friends down here in North Carolina that ran these taxi cabs and jalopies down here. And I thought, man, we're not being able to build anything cool for Indy cars anymore. I'm going to go south and I'm going to work on NASCAR stuff where we can still build stuff and make cars cool and fast. And so got down here, had some Busch teams and some truck teams. Earnhardt had a team that Papa John sponsored, and Hornaday drove it and got to play with them a little bit. Dick Moroso had a team. Rob is already gone. Worked on Moroso's team. We ran Busch cars and we ran some Cup cars. and then got an opportunity to go over to Sabco in Mellow Yellow Kyle Petty days. And then we moved into Coors Light and played stock cars there for a few years. From that, the opportunity came about to go to this. I don't know if the guy's ever going to make it or not in racing, but some guy had car dealerships down here, and a guy named Rick Hendrick, and got a chance to go over and play at his little garage. And we made 6 years out of playing on actually Rick's dad, Papa Joe Hendrick. I worked for his team the whole time I was there. And when you were there and you worked for Papa Joe, you were Papa Joe's guys. He was, man, that guy was just so cool to work for. Just a great human being. And then that Earnhardt guy, we got an opportunity. He was starting to team up for Dale Jr. and got requested and required and pretty well voluntold that I was going to go over to that team and work for him. So we did 9 years on Dale Jr.'s team. That merged us into a deal once Jr. left to go to Hendrick. Tony Jr. left, everybody left, and I was contractually obligated to stick around for a little while. That merged us into Ginn, and then we got to another merger into Ganassi, and I finally got paroled from NASCAR from the Ganassi team, and I won't look back. We have sprint cars. I'll go anywhere and run sprint cars, but I'm just not I looked behind the curtain with the NASCAR stuff. I saw the wizard, and I lost all my fun there. So we play with other things that I can go have fun with now. And so now I'm just kind of a sprint car guy. I have a real job. First time in my life I have a real job. I work for a group called Detroit Speed and Engineering. We are a suspension company, and we build high-end hot rods and muscle cars, a lot of muscle cars, Chevelles, Camaros, Mustangs. We modern engines, modern transmissions, modern driveline, and our whole upgraded modern suspension. We take a 67, 8, and 9 Camaro, put a rack and pinion steering under it, Corvette C6 style front upright spindles. We get 18-inch wheels, big brakes, put an LS7 with a Tremec 6-speed manual transmission behind them, Ford 9-inch rear end with all our stuff. And we make cool little 69 Camaros that'll go out and outrun the new Corvettes and just hurt a guy's feelings, and that makes it fun. We just, if I can I send you guys pictures and get them put into work?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Please, yes.
Good deal. I can handle that. I'll fire some pictures back, but we're in process on a 65 Buick Riviera right now, LS7 with an automatic 6L80, the big 6-speed automatic behind it. And this car tripped out a little over $1.25 million for a badass piece. And nice. The owner's going to take it and do some track days even with it. It gets to go run some really cool places. It's hit a few tracks already, and it went to Battle of the Builders in SEMA. It went to Good Guys Nationals. It's been all around. It's a fairly popular, well-received car. But we get to just, there's 12 cars usually in the shop at all times, and we get to build really cool projects for really cool people. We just finished one recently and sent it to California to this little comedian dude named Kevin Hart, and that was a root beer color with a white leather interior, and we had to put a booster seat in it for Kevin, because he's kind of a little small guy. We had to go find a John Andretti seat and mount it in there for Kevin, because John wasn't needing it anymore. God love him, he ain't with us anymore. But so we had to get Kevin taken care of and get stuff sent out to him. But he's got it now, and he's tooling around California, terrorizing the neighborhood and having a good time with her.
Put blocks on the pedals, right?
Yeah, that's what I was just thinking.
Absolutely. Kevin came to the shop a few times with his entourage, the guys on tour with him, and TV crew and the whole thing. And I will tell you, that guy is exactly the way you see him in commercials and TV. And anytime you see him, he's on the chip all the time. Whole lot of fun and just total nutcase. He had us laughing, and he's one of those guys I picked back at him quite a bit, and he fully appreciated it. And we had a jousting deal going back and forth, and just had a really good time. He is absolutely normal, cool character, and he loves cars. He fit in great with all of us.
We need to get him on the show.
Absolutely.
Talk about that car.
No doubt.
Yeah, Andy, can you put a word in for us? Because I don't think anybody else can get a hold of his crew. let alone his underlings.
He had a Red Cup tour. You know, we could probably get him. They Red Cup, like the Solo Cup kind of thing. I think it's what's in the cup that made it matter. But yeah, they had Red Cup tour when the guys were all back through our direction. But yeah, they are a good group. You think if we're going to get him on a show, we got to get him in a modified and teach him how to throw sliders?
Oh yeah.
Oh, good God.
Hell yeah, let's do it.
I just want to be on the radio.
You think he'd bring the rock out with him?
You know, it's a possibility. I suppose. I think they might run around a little bit together.
Yeah,
You know how
maybe
those
just a
Hollywood
little
guys
bit.
are.
So I'm
So
going
real
to
quick question, Andy. In your World Outlaw Sprint Car days, what years was that?
Okay, I'm going to back up a little bit just for the context of it. Growing up, Pancho Carter drove my dad's sprint cars. We won some championships in USAC, had a lot of great success. Pancho
Heard of
moved
him.
up, went off, ran Indy cars, and we had a 78 Gary Stanton car in my dad's shop that was bought from Gary Irvin to have an engine to put in ours. I put that car together when I was 15, fixed a frame. It had flipped out of Terre Haute during one of the Wide World of Sports races, and it took out the camera outside turn 2 with a guy named Gary Irvin driving it. Gary we just lost him 4 or 5 months ago. Indiana sprint car racer, champ dirt car racer, awesomely cool guy. But he just passed away, but we'll plug in for him as well. But Gary flipped the thing out of Terre Haute. We ended up with it because we needed our sponsor, and our sponsor sponsored our car and his. So we bought the car. We put the engine in our car to go back the next day, and whole lot of overnight thrash to get that done. So the car just sat out behind the shop. I decided later on I wanted to have a sprint car, so I started putting the thing together. Got it done when I was 15. We put an engine together, and it was that same thing. I was well known enough among all the racing community in Indiana. I couldn't lie about my age, and at that time we all had to be 18 to run. So I had to hire guys to drive it, and there were some guys that drove for my dad or worked at the shop for Dad, that Jimmy White being one of them, and then later on this guy named Brad Marvel, local Indiana hero, plugged him in it, and we had all kinds of fun, raced well. So I started driving sprint cars in '83, which is my senior year of high school, and I had to lie a little bit. And my first race was Paragon International Raceway, Paragon, Indiana. It's called International Raceway because it's named after the tractor they used to groom the track. It wasn't anything international about Paragon other than the tractor. That was it. But great little racetrack. And the first night I ran my own car there, I caught the wall coming off turn 4 and tumbled it down the front straightaway and destroyed the thing. So in a very short time, we went to McKenzie, Tennessee, to Jack Elam's J&J Race Cars and got a brand new, beautiful, shiny, pretty little brand new chassis, brand new race car from Jack. Came home, put it together with what was left out of my Stanton car, and got her all polished up and painted up pretty, and we kept on racing. So I started in '83 and broke my neck at Eldora in '88, and I ran until '91, but I had headaches and complications from the crash at Eldora, and that was pretty well, that ended my career. But we ran All-Stars, ran USAC, ran World of Outlaws. We ran the Thursday Night Thunder races when they were live on ESPN with Danny Laycock and Terry Lingner and the whole group from ESPN that put that together. And God bless those guys for giving us a chance and an opportunity that we had no idea how cool that was. And they put us on live television and made heroes out of some of the guys like Jeff Gordon and Mike Bliss and a few others.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So, you know anybody with the last name Hewitt that ran around in a sprint car?
You know, I might have thrown some dirt at him, and he definitely threw a lot of dirt at me as well. Yeah, Jack and I, quick story, the first time we went to Eldora is pretty doggone intimidating. And we got there, and, man, you go in the corner, or you come off the corner at Eldora as fast as you go in the corner anywhere else. So run down the back straightaway, and if you don't turn that thing hard to the right just before the pit gate, it drives right to the middle and bottom of the racetrack and rolls around the bottom. And you look like a damn wanker down there with the slow guys around the bottom of the place because all the fast guys are up banging off the wall. So we came in after think it was after heat race because Jack didn't get a chance to watch. And he comes walking over, all that cool mustache and the whole thing. And he comes over and he looks at me. He says, points at the back gate. And he said, when you get to that back gate, he said, you really got to just turn your hands to the right. Make the car, turn it like you're going to go out the gate. He says, even you can't crash here going into turn 3. You cannot get to the wall, I promise you. About that time, my dad's freaking out. Don't tell him that. He can crash anywhere. But he was trying to convince me that I can't crash at Eldora going into 30. And I will be honest with you, I flat ass. We ran 6th in the B main my first time running Eldora, and I missed the show. And they took 4. I ran 6th, and I'm going to tell you, I was embarrassed and just brokenhearted. I wanted to run there. I grew up with guys with dad's cars running there, with heroes driving them. And I wanted to go there and run good my first time, and we flat missed the show. The next time we went back was 2 weeks later. It was an all-star show and ran 4th because I'd made up my mind we were going to run the fence no matter what it took. And from that point on, I was kind of hard on Earl's Concrete around the top of the place, but we ran the fence every time we were there. And but yeah, Hewitt we ran with Jack the whole time I was going. That was Jack's time in the 63 car driving for Bob Hampshire. And man, that guy was tough. He was bad to the bone. And when you could race with Hewitt, you were doing something. When you could race and you were ahead of Hewitt, you were getting it done. And when I crashed at Eldora and broke my neck, Jack and I started 7th and 8th side by side. And each few laps going by the flag stand, one of us was ahead of the other one. And we were working our way up. And Hewitt went underneath Greg Staub and put a slider on him, and I was going around the outside of Greg, and Greg moved up because Hewitt went under him for the lead, and he moved up, and I went to go around the outside of him and got over the cushion and got in the fence, turned it over, and broke the roll cage off of my second night out on an 88.5 Challenger car. My 88 was a piece of junk. We got an 88.5. That thing was a rocket, and I turned it over the second night I ran it and broke it apart, broke my neck, and beat myself up. I didn't know my neck was broken, so we went back home. We put a car together for the pavement, and 3.5, 4 weeks later, when the doorbell quit ringing, the phone quit ringing, and my eyes would settle down, and some of the pain went away, we went to IRP for a pavement show, and went down the first turn on the first green lap of hot laps. And I got into one, and I couldn't hold my head up. My head turned over to the right, and I was looking at the wall, and went around 1 and 2 with the wall. And luckily, back in those days, we had the sissy strap, and I had them on all my fire suits. And I clipped that baby, got it with my right hand, switched over, driving with my left hand, got it to hook, cinched that thing down, and we finished hot laps with a strap hooked on, and kept my head pulled down to the point where I could keep it in place and I could see where we were going. Came in after that and come rolling up the trailer. Man, I kicked that baby off on the backstretch as soon as we got the checkered flag for a hot lap session. We were slowing down, and I came rolling in, and Dad looks at me. He says, "You all right?" I said, "Yeah, I'm fine. Why?" And he says, "Well, if you're so good, what's with a sissy strap?" I'll be danged from the pit area, and turn 4, he saw me clip that thing coming off turn 2 at speed on the back straightaway. I was truly hoping nobody saw it, but he did. He spotted it, and so I kind of had to lie to dear old Dad and tell him, "Nah, just my next little twinge to it. I just want to make sure I was okay." I wasn't going to tell him I couldn't hold my head up. We ran all night long. I got clipped in the heat race, tipped up, thought I was going to turn over and flip all the way down the straightaway, and I got lucky. It popped the right rear tire. It sat back down. It slid to a stop after hitting the inside wall down there in turn 1. And here comes Dad on the four-wheeler, hauling ass down pit road. He gets down there, looks at me, he says, "You all right?" "Yep, I'm fine." He says, "Good, don't unbuckle, don't do anything." He says, "I think we can put tires on it." So drug it up pit road, put 2 rear tires on. Lenny Green on one side, CJ Kopp on the other side. Both of them put tires on, reached in, told me everything's good on my side. Those guys helped me with everything all the time. I put my life in their hands, counted on them. We went back out and transferred out of the heat race and made the A, and I don't really, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, somewhere in there. I was never a big player at IRP. I was a lot happier at Winchester and Salem where I had banking to catch my stuff. The flat at IRP, I didn't have a good setup for it. I didn't like that place nearly as well as the others. And I still, to this day, the pavement was great. Eldora is my favorite place to run. I love the dirt, but Winchester has to be just the neatest pavement track a guy could ever go to. And I loved going there. Great, fun, cool racetrack. But if you give me a choice and I'm going to get to jump in a time machine and go back to that era and run again, we're going to Eldora first, and then we'll go to Winchester, and then we'll go back to Eldora, and then we'll go back to Winchester. I could run a whole season between just those two tracks and be a happy guy.
Graduated
Nice.
high school in Indiana. We went to Salem a lot for the asphalt racing up there. But wow, broke your neck, didn't know it, and then you hooked your strap up and continued racing when you couldn't hold your head up. That is amazing.
Wow, that's stupid. That's just being dumb.
Yeah.
It's when you're not smart enough to know any better, you just go ahead and do these things. So it's just part of it.
Yeah, but just to be able to work through that pain of having a broken neck and just being like, oh, it's just a normal injury or something. Like, holy cow.
I was pretty good at crashing, and I was kind of used to pain. So
Yeah.
What's this group?
Yeah.
I'm fairly good at crashing.
Race car drivers have never been accused of being smart.
it's true. We're too lazy to work, too afraid to steal, and that's why racing is the next option.
Right.
And too dumb to admit when we're hurt.
Oh, absolutely.
I just love the part of that story that proving once again you can't get shit past your dad is he knows what's going on.
Yep.
Dad knew what was up.
Dad did all this same stuff. He drove for years. And then my dad and AJ Foyt were buddies. They grew up around each other. They left California with a midget, AJ's midget, on an open trailer with a tire pole and a toolbox. And my grandpa's Cameo pickup truck. Foyt was 15, Dad was 14. And they left Indiana going back east racing because they figured out how old they were on the West Coast, so they went east. And the two of them, all the way through life, we lost Dad a few years ago. And he and AJ, every time they get together, they'd sit around, hold court, tell stories, pick on each other, give each other a tough time constantly. I've had a absolute blessed childhood and life because my grandpa and my dad did such cool things. Man, I was just lucky to be able to ride along and be just a fly on the wall for that. And that opportunity came about to have my own sprint cars and do my own racing, and kind of carried me on through all Dad's buddies in IndyCar. And then I had, I talked about my friends that were down here in NASCAR world. To clarify a little on that, some kid named Bobby Hillen Jr. My dad built cars for Bobby Hillen Sr. for Longhorn Racers, and Bobby Jr. came to the shop. I think I was 12. He was 11 when we met the first time. And then he'd come up to spend summers with us in Indiana, and we'd go racing. And just, man, we had a great childhood, great fun. And then when I was younger, even shortly after that, some guy from Fenton, Missouri named Kenny Schrader. He drove for Dean Cook and Ray Marler over there. And when Poncho wasn't available to run Dad's cars, those guys wore Dad out to put Schrader in it. So we ran with Schrader quite a bit. And there's a lot of things you can learn from Schrader. Some we can't talk about on here, but there's great things you can learn from Schrader.
That'd be
and
part of the after show.
That dude is so much fun. Yes, it is.
Exactly. And oddly enough, Kyle Tucker is really one of my closest friends, and he started Detroit Speed. And Kyle came from Missouri to Florida with Schrader when Kenny was driving for us down there. Kyle's mom and dad made a very bad parental choice to let him leave Missouri with Schrader, and at 11 years old, and drive from Missouri to Florida. And we got there. Kenny had enough going on. He was busy, so Kyle became like a little brother. He lived with us the whole time, as Kenny was out being a race car driver and having his good times and running around doing his things. And so oddly enough, Kyle and I became great friends at that point, and still to this day are friends. When I got paroled from the Ganassi team, Kyle called the next morning and roped me right into going up to Mooresville and sitting down with him and having a talk. And I've been working for Detroit Speed from that day on. He got me. I wanted to take 2 weeks, go run my race car, have some fun, enjoy life, and reevaluate what I was going to be when I grow up. And he didn't really give me that option. He had me at work the next morning in Mooresville, North Carolina, at his shop, figuring out what we were going to do and how we were going to do things from there. And I told him, I said, dude, man, you're killing my whole thing. I'm going to go racing. He says, you can go racing whenever you want to. The only time I'll be mad if you leave here to go racing is if you don't take me along with you. And so I take him as often as I can, but he's on his second marriage, and his new wife had a couple kids, so he's learning that dad and kid thing, and I'm so proud of him because it's so cool to watch your buddies grow up that didn't have kids, and all of a sudden they get them, and now they got to learn how to be a dad, and he's picking it up. He's doing a great job. So I love that, but we still drag him out. We put him in a sprint car a few years ago. He grew up, like I say, in St. Louis, Missouri, running stock cars, ran some midgets, ran a couple sprint car races. So we put him in our 360 sprint car down here in Carolinas. Test night we were running, and let him have some laps around there. And I think that was a highlight of his older age at this point anyway.
So your dad has one of the coolest nicknames in racing, the Big Bopper.
Yes, he does. He has Irish Saunders from Hoosier Tire, and Boston Louis Seymour. Louis Seymour owned the 29 cars. Billy Casella drove them. Eddie Levitt drove for him. Louis had champ dirt cars and sprint cars. He was out of Boston, Massachusetts. And the dedication that Louis had to come from the East Coast to the USAC races all year long. He didn't miss a single race, whether it was champ dirt car, sprint car, whatever it was. He was there for all of them. And the two of them, just like Richie, was it Richie Valens, the Big Bopper? Was that his real name?
Yeah, Richie Valens.
And Dad's walking down through the pit area, and Irish and Boston Louis, they tagged him with "Here Comes the Big Bopper," and it stuck like glue. My grandpa had quite a few other nicknames for him through the years, and the Bopper stuck way better. One of those nicknames from my grandpa, he used to call him Herman. Oh. Well, if your dad's Herman, that makes you Little Herman. And that didn't do a damn thing for love life or anything else. So I didn't want to be known as Little Herman. Little Bopper works a lot better than Little Herman.
Yes, similar story how I ended up becoming Razz was the track announcer at Santa Maria Speedway couldn't pronounce our last name, so my dad decided to fix his wagon. He registered as Razzmatazz Eustace Barlow Jr., and that's how he had to announce him.
As I was growing up, we ran Lawrenceburg, Indiana, Lawrenceburg Speedway just about every Saturday night. The Johnson family owned it, and they had an announcer there, old Bert, and I can say this now because Bert's he can't be with us any longer because he was an older gentleman back then, and he might have participated in a little bit of the adult beverage at times. And Greg Staub ran there in the yellow 44 car, and I'm Andy Stapp in the yellow 77 car. And I was Andy Staub, and he was Greg Stapp, and we had poor old Bert. He had a hard time keeping us separated along with everybody else. We really at one point absolutely pursued Fuddruckers hamburger joint to put Fuddruckers on the hood of the car because we knew that was going to screw him up, and he was probably going to get fired when he got that one messed up. But we laughed about it and pursued that for a little bit, and eventually my mom said no. Bert's a sweet old guy. We're not going to screw him up like that. Just put a halt to the whole thing.
So,
why are moms being all sensible and stuff?
Mine wasn't most of the time.
All the fun.
I got to give my mom credit. She wasn't sensible most of the time. I got to tell you one more if we have a minute before we get into the rest of the show here, and I'm sorry.
No, you're good.
Henchman Fire Suits was downtown Indianapolis. J.B. Henchman and his son Lou was in there making fire suits. J.B. Henchman, one of, if not his first ever fire suit he made for my grandpa. And I found it through a guy in California. I bought it back. Now Nancy Chumley runs Henchman Fire Suits, and she's on Gasoline Alley in Indianapolis. And I told her, I said, it's mine, but it's going to stay up here on display because you get a whole bunch more people coming through your place than I do coming through my living room. And I'd like everybody to be able to see the thing. So it lives at Nancy's. But Mr. Henchman was downtown Indy. My dad was really good friends with a guy who ran Top Fuel Dragsters, a guy named Paul Romine. He ran funny cars and dragsters, and Romine was an NHRA and IHRA Top Fuel. He's IHRA champion. I don't know if he was ever champion in NHRA, but he was a hell of a racer. And his family had an engine business right downtown. So when I was 14 years old, I had my first pickup truck. And Indiana was a little bit more relaxed back then. And I'd drive downtown and I'd pick up Romine and I'd pick up Mr. Hinchman and we'd go to Shapiro's Jewish delicatessen downtown and we'd have a killer lunch. That place was absolutely awesome. So I found out through the time now, I mean, I'm 14. I'm not ready for a fire suit or anything else, but I'd go down and we'd get Mr. Hinchman and Romine and we'd go have a good time. So later on, when I got my car together and was hiring drivers for it, I realized there was going to be a time coming up real soon. I needed a fire suit because I was going to jump in this thing and practice and test and everything else. Mr. Hinchman had this thing that if he made a fire suit for your dad, your very first one was free. Well, I guess since he made them for my grandpa and he made fire suits for my dad, that worked out to be the double bonus deal because in my time, I think I had 5 or 6 Hinchman fire suits. And I don't know that Mr. Hinchman made me pay more than half price for more than 2 of them. I think 3 of them were free, and 2 of them I might have had to pay half price for. That gentleman took such good care of me, and he taught me the most valuable lesson. Every fire suit I got from him came with 2 sets of Nomex underwear. And he told me, so the Nomex underwear is more important than the fire suit. You wear it every time you put one of my fire suits on, and it will buy you twice as much time as the fire suit will. So you make sure and wear Nomex underwear constantly. So between him and Poncho and all the heroes that I had that were knocking my head around, keeping me straight growing up, I made sure I had all the best safety stuff. Poncho had me hooked up with Bill Simpson, so I had Simpson helmets and neck collars and Simpson gloves. And Ronnie Schumann made arm restraints, so I had some of Ronnie Schumann's arm restraints. And I got to tell you, I mean, just so spoiled with the group I grew up with. But so when it came time to get that very first fire suit, I didn't tell Mom or Dad or anybody else where I was, and I snuck away and went down and took Mr. Hinchman to lunch again, and I got measured for a fire suit. And Nancy was this pretty young lady. She was just a kid working down there, measuring everybody and doing the things, and now she owns the company. But they put my first fire suit together, and when I got back to our little town of Brownsburg on the west side of Indy, Mom and Dad were bugging me because they were trying to figure out where I'd been and this and that. And I finally had to give in and tell Mom where I'd been. I'd been at Hinchman's. And it was a few weeks, and I got the phone call that my fire suit was ready, and I went back down to Hinchman's and picked it up. And I came back as a smart-ass 16, 17-year-old kid, 17 at the time, and I hung that fire suit on the coat rack right in front of Mom's desk. And my mom, she's got tears in her eyes, and she's spun out. She does not want her kid to be a race car driver. And she looks at me, and she's got tears running, and she says, every mom has fears of what her son is going to grow up to be. Moms are either afraid their kids are going to grow up to be queer, or they're going to grow up to be race car drivers. Why the hell weren't you queer? And that's exactly what came out of Mom.
And that's when you found out Mom was a bigger smartass than you.
Oh, she put up with Dad for a long time. She was a great smartass. Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. So that fire suit hanging there, I had to take it that night. I had to take it home because she was about out of tears. And for the next couple of weeks, I couldn't hardly walk by her without her getting choked up and have tears running down her face. And then with the crashes and the dumb shit I did when I drove, I know I put a lot of gray hair on her head, and I took years off of her life just in the stuff I did to her and the things I put her through and the amount of time she had to climb in the back of the ambulance with me to make sure I was actually okay. But God love her, and once she got over the panic, she'd pat me on the arm and tell me, that's okay, we'll put together another race car. We'll make sure you got enough stuff to go do it again. So she was great.
Yep.
So Andy and I first met at Chili Bowl, I think it was 2019. You can see why we get along. We kind of have the same sense of humor. And he was crew chief on the Woodland car for Mark Lowry. And that turned into more being a driver coach than a crew chief because Mark, love him, he's a great guy, but he did not really have any business in a midget at Chili Bowl. And Andy and I were standing watching him and going, oh my God, because these guys were throwing these half sliders at him, and as soon as he could see a front wheel, Mark was letting him in. I'm like, oh my, and Andy and I both are standing over at the ramp just losing our shit, going, why is he doing that? So finally, he comes back to the pit, and Andy's like, "What the hell are you doing?" He goes, "Well, he was there." He goes, "If you can't see the number on the tail tank, keep your foot in it." And I about pissed my pants laughing.
I forgot about that. Oh, I'm gonna tell you what, we had so much fun that year with Mark, and to date, he is the first black man to win a main at the Chili Bowl. It may have been the alphabet H-I-J somewhere in there, but I think it was the H main we won with Mark, and we had
it was the F.
It was the F. That was it. Yep. We had a left rear tire come off in our qualifying night. The end of the axle was torn up, and by the time we realized what was going on, had to just pull on it and hope like hell it held, and it didn't. And the wheel came off, so we had to change rear ends and swap everything around in the thing. Had to go borrow a rear end from somebody else that the axle wasn't destroyed on. But we got that taken care of, and we ran in our qualifier that night. I think the right rear tire went flat, and that's what put us in the alphabet soup back there. But I'll tell you what, I was so proud of Mark on the effort he put in, and the fact that he just got quicker and better and got, you fuss at him a little bit, bitch at him. Some drivers will, close up on you, seal up, and not get it done. Man, I'll tell you what, we put a little bit of pressure on him, and he just stepped right up and took it like a champ. And he dished it out just as much as we dished it out to him. He fought back, and he gave us just as much static and just as much hell. And I'm proud to still have him as a very good friend. And I get to see him around here all the time. He lives about 20 minutes away from us. And I call him every now and then, or I send him just a big FU text just to see what kind of response I get out of him. But I'll send him, hey, I'm going to a clan meeting tonight. You want to come with me? You can be my date. And he usually sends me the FU back on that one. But he's got that sense of humor, and I'm going to tell you, absolute awesome guy. We had a great time. We got to go run some races in Indiana and all with him, and we got him quite a bit faster. And I think if we'd started a whole lot sooner and had a little bit more budget, we might have been able to make a little bit of a player out of that guy. He had the basics of it, had it figured out. We had a great time at Chili Bowl that year. That was quite a cool accomplishment there.
And then when we changed the rear end and we were putting the tires on, it was either me or Andy. We were putting every bit of ass we had on that wheel wrench to make sure they were tight.
Absolutely. And his interview after winning that F main is almost as good as the Kiss My Dick Jack Hewitt interview. It's almost other just the fact that he just didn't make any sense at all, but he was so doggone happy and gibberish and everything else coming out of him. He used to tell us, when I win my first feature event, I'm gonna stand up on the roll cage and grab the microphone and ask, where all the white women be at? That was his deal. He was looking forward to it. Oh, he was a mess. He shows up at Patrick Woodland's house for the Halloween party. A couple of years ago, he showed up as an all-orange Oompa Loompa. And, man, we were on the ground laughing at that goofy son of a gun.
Yeah, the interview is that Jack and Joe went up the hill, and so did we, and I forget the rest of it. But you can find it. You can find it on YouTube on the Metal Manglers channel because we had an in-car GoPro on him, and it captured the whole thing. It was hilarious.
I didn't get to go with him, but Rich and Patrick and Brian Tyler and the guys took Mark and went to Linda's Speedway up in Pennsylvania, and he crashed and busted his ass up there to the point where his eyes were swollen shut. He couldn't see. The whites of his eyes went red from all the blood vessels busting. So he had a towel over his head, and he had his arm up on Brian Tyler's shoulder, and Brian was walking him into the place. And, Brian's a character. He's a racer, too. So he walked Mark into a couple doorways because he knew he couldn't see. So he walked close and crashed him into a couple doorways because he was already hurt. He was already crashed anyway. So what's a couple more? But I'll be damned if our boy Rich Woodland didn't want to, or I think he made a shirt, said Woodland Autosports, turning black guys purple and blue since 2017 or whatever it was. I mean, classic. And Mark was the first guy to wear that shirt. He was proud of it. Yeah,
that was a good time. And so earlier today, Andy and I were on a group chat, and we're talking about Ty Gibbs at Las Vegas, and Andy and I have opposite viewpoints. So I said, "Well, you want to talk about it? Come on over to the podcast." That's how he got here tonight.
I got the challenge from Razz, no doubt about it. Go ahead and give them your viewpoint, Razz, and I'm curious to see what the guys think here. If y'all paid attention to Ty running the high limit race in Las Vegas.
We had one of our own there. Mr. Bridger Motorsports was at the race.
Yeah.
Was there?
Yeah, John was there covering it.
What'd you think, John? Did he do okay or not?
Okay in his heat. I'll give you that. I was taking video at the time, so I didn't really see his wreck. I saw replays. Yeah, I kind of think he stepped on his dick like Brandon usually does.
Oh, shit. Shots fired.
At least some of us are going fast enough to step on our dicks.
I'm just jealous you got one long enough to be able to get to it with your foot.
It's kind of impressive sometimes, you know.
He's got to take it off his shoulder once in a while.
Yeah.
Every once in a while.
Every once in a while, you got to throw it over your shoulder to get through some traffic, but when you step on it, it doesn't feel very well.
I can promise you, I've screwed up a lot, but I've never been able to step on that little short guy. I can promise you that.
You know, my contention with Ty Gibbs is he showed up at Chili Bowl with almost no experience and didn't do worth a shit, and then he showed up at Las Vegas with almost no experience and stepped on his dick and flipped his dick off. And I don't think the guy's paid his dues. I think he the last dirt car he ran was an outlaw cart before he got in a midget. There's plenty opportunities for him to get some experience. He could go out to Millbridge and run some micros. He could, get in 360 and run that Carolina Sprint Tour that you're a part of. There's a lot of things he could do other than jumping in deep into the pool.
Hey, man, he's an established race car driver. He wouldn't be running in smaller little rinky-dink operations. He's in all honesty, we were talking about this and we had a little discussion about it back and forth. I can appreciate where you're coming from, but the guys need to pay their dues on the way up. Alex Bowman, good friend. I like Alex. I go by his shop. He's got, I've got some even equipment over there that he's using. Great guy. Alex showed up and ran some races and just showed up and actually, I think he was quick time at Putnamville in a high limit race when the guys run a few midget shows here and there and not a lot of sprint car stuff.
He was a national champion in a midget, though.
National champion or a West Coast or Western area champion?
I thought he was a national champion in was the Power Eye midgets.
Google
I could be wrong.
that shit. GTS.
Yeah, we have to check that out. I have to. That or we have to text Bowman and ask him what the hell his credentials are.
But hey, Andy, send Bowman the link. He can jump in and tell us himself.
Exactly. Send it over to him.
Hey, hop in here, bud. Hop in the firing squad.
I saw how much trouble you had just getting hooked up to this thing, and I thought I was technologically challenged.
No, I have like 18 different internets, and I don't know which one works half the time. I got
Andy?
2 Starlinks. All my wires are plugged in, Phil. All right, so stop it.
No, hey, I was saying, and Neilden is our smartest computer guy.
Wow, that's
saying something.
Exactly.
He won the National Focus Midget Championship in 2008.
Yeah.
Okay.
Phil said, "Oh, it's raining in Florida." Come to find out, he just couldn't plug his wire into his router.
Yeah.
I would be being here.
1/32 of an inch. Another 16th, and you would have had internet.
It was.
Hey,
that's probably exactly how far out it was.
Have been on last week, dickhead. I told you a 30-second means something.
Okay, hang on. I got Alex Bowman. He won the USAC National Focus Midget Championship in 2008.
Well, hold on a second.
And
Brandon,
was named
just say that?
National Rookie
I don't
Champion
know.
in 2009, but he won the Focus Midget Championship in 2008. Yes, I just said that.
I was looking it up and we were all shooting the shit, so I wasn't listening to you.
It's okay, John, you're old. You can't hear very well. I got it.
Wow.
I'm going to offend some people here, and I'm going to pick on my buddy Alex. But being the National Focus Midget Champion is kind of like having that bumper sticker that says, I got the smartest kid in special ed in the school.
Okay. That's fair.
Jesus Christ.
I get another beer on that point.
I'm sorry.
Is it kind of like, driving the short yellow bus?
It is. It's like I got the sharpest kid on the short bus. Exactly what that is. Yeah.
Golly almighty.
So funny story. My dad used to actually drive the short yellow bus for the kids.
And Phil rode on it. He sat in the front
Yeah.
seat.
I was gonna say.
I did. Hell yeah. I never claimed to be the smartest duck in the pond, but I am a damn duck in this pond.
Hey, Jack was the driver. Phil was the window licker.
Hey, that windshield ain't never been cleaner.
Yeah, that's
Right.
right.
Eating window licking little ray of sunshine. He was.
That's me. And then I turned out to be a race car owner and driver. See, it just carries right on to adulthood.
Right on through.
Right on
So-
through.
The other thing I want to get your opinion on, Andy, was they had to do an open red at the tail end of that race because everybody was running out of fuel. Now, I know the modern trend is to run a lot smaller tail tank than you're used to running back when you ran. And, what do you think about that?
I'm an old school guy. I love the big fat tails on them. I hate the little small, tiny, slightly bigger than a midget tail tank on these things. And I'm also the guy that if we have a race scheduled, you're on a big half mile, it's going to use a lot of fuel. Those guys have tail tanks hanging in the trailers. We have them hanging in our trailer. We have big ones. We have little ones. The 69 car running out with Pittman leading that thing with 5 laps or more to go. I didn't understand.
5.
How do you run out? Those guys run Port Royal regularly. And they're bad fast there. And their stuff runs the whole race. Port Royal's got to be as hard on it as for fuel as Vegas is. And I didn't understand that. They have some, Kreitz and those guys are brilliant. Pittman knows what he's doing, obviously. The guy can take time off, jump back in, and go wear them all out. And I was so proud of him. Darren is such a cool guy. His dad was a cool character. Just good people. But, he had them covered and ran out of fuel. And, I don't know about him, but that hurt my feelings sitting at home on the couch watching the race. But I believe unless you run a special 50-lapper at Knoxville, okay, I can see a caution and a red flag, fill them back up and go again. But we run sprint cars. We don't run endurance races. Let's run a 40-lapper. Boys, it's on you to put a big enough fuel tank on it to run your car 40 laps. It's on you to figure it out. If you run out of fuel, park your stuff in the infield, get out of the way. Don't sit there on the bottom of the racetrack, bring out a caution and screw up everybody else's race because you didn't have a big enough tank. You didn't have enough fuel in that. You didn't have it, jetted where you were going to make it the whole time. There are fuel tanks made all the time big enough to do the job that needs to be done. So I am a proponent of we have a race. It's up to the sanctioning body to figure out as well how many laps we can run with the fuel load we're carrying. But a 40-lapper at Las Vegas, and I'm going to be done. Was that 30 or was that 40-lapper?
30.
It was a 30.
It was 30.
Yeah, there's no reason they should have been running out of fuel at that point. But, we got tanks that can handle that with no trouble. A 30-lap sprint car race is a standard thing. We ought to be able to run green to checker on that. Yellow flag laps there are long. That's a big place. Yellow flag laps, you're going to use it up. But I know when we run our 360 car down here, we run in the southeast, where our sprint car guys that run down here will create cautions. It's just a guaranteed you're going to have cautions. So when we go up, or we go out for the feature, that baby's up within 1.5 inches, 2 inches, maybe an inch from the fuel cap on the top of it. We fill it all the way up. I've won a lot of races with too much fuel. Haven't won one yet without enough.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a fuel pressure problem.
Those are old man facts right there.
Coming out of Iowa, Darren Pittman, just seeing that guy out front of that deal was cool to see because, I've watched Darren Pittman racing sprint cars around Knoxville a lot. So, that's cool. And he's not, Kyle Larson. He's not these young kids. He's been around a bit. So to watch him run out of gas sucked for people that's been watching him a while.
Yeah.
It was hard to watch. It just hurt. I mean, it was unfortunate that it went down that way because he had everybody covered. And then the guys, he owns Ultra Shield seats, and he has made such a safety difference and such a change in that. And they have the tear-offs and they have all the stuff. Between Stevie Smith and his titanium business, making all the cool bits and pieces for all of us, and Pittman making quality stuff as well. We have the safety has come a long way in these things as well. We got to give a shout out to all the safety companies, the seat companies, the seat belt companies, the Hans and the hybrids. When a short time ago, Holly Performance Group, which is started out as a carburetor company, they bought our company, Detroit Speed, and they bought Simpson. They bought quite a few. So I go there because we were all under the same ownership and under the same blanket. And I did a lot of projects and a lot of work with our group here in Mooresville at the Simpson Safety Center, the store where they make all the custom seat belts. They make all the Hans and hybrids. They do all the certifications. A whole group of dedicated ladies and men in there that work their butts off and pay attention to what they're doing to make sure that these racers are safe. And they don't get nearly enough acknowledgement for what they do, and they're a great group of people. But to go over there and be in that place all the time and just see all the modern day changes, the new helmets, the new stuff going on, and fire suits, same way. That stuff has stepped up from what we used to wear, what I had in my time frame, to what's going on now with the quilted and then the Carbon X interior lining and all the stuff going on with fire suits in the modern day world. It's pretty cool to see what's going on and what's happening and how they're making all the safety stuff better. But it's still sprint cars. If it can't kill you, it ain't worth doing. So we're running the best kind of race cars and best kind of stuff going on.
Well, speaking of safety, Aaron Reitzel took one to the face.
Yeah.
So let me pull that window up.
Yeah, that was crazy when that happened, because that happened in the dash. And yeah, he just all of a sudden was car was all over the place. He pulled it over to the inside of 3 and 4. And I'm like, what's going on? And ambulance rolling and everything. And then when they finally got the update, I'm like, oh, damn, that's crazy. You get a rock go through
But I mean, as Razz
visor.
pointed out, he doesn't have the damn screen like everybody else does.
Whoa, that's
Jesus.
That's
Again, folks, we are technical experts. We know what we're doing.
Yeah.
Said
Okay.
no one.
To infinity and
That
beyond.
worked out well.
I did not have a rock screen on there, and some of those things are pretty huge coming through there anyway, and they'll split apart on a rock screen as it is. But didn't have a rock screen. I'm sitting here on the couch watching that deal, and I turned to my wife and I said, he just had a driveline break, and the U-joint just came around and slapped him on top of the foot, and it just broke his foot. And just a couple seconds later, my oldest son calls. He says, man, what do you think? I think Reitzel just knocked the driveline out of that thing, and the U-joint came around and got him on the foot. I was like, yeah, that's what I'm afraid. Yes, God, that hurts so bad. I've never had it done, but I've seen guys that have been through that, and the whole end of the U-joint just comes and slaps you right on top of the foot and breaks your foot. And I was like, man, I felt so bad for him. That's got to hurt. And then we found out later on that, he took a rock to the face. When I was a kid, Jan Opperman, there's a classic picture of Opp with his nose all splattered on his face, all bloody. He took a big rock when he ran open face helmets. And Bob East got one at New Bremen, and it busted his nose open and split him open in the heat race. And he came back and ran the feature, taped up, patched up, and put back together. There have been a bazillion guys, especially the open face helmet guys. That was kind of just one of those standard things that happened back in the day. But nowadays, it's just with all the body work and everything on them, and the wings especially. Usually the wings are a huge deterrent of anything coming at you, because it makes the hole, as you can look at right there, from the wicker bill on the nose wing to the bottom of the top wing, it really narrows things up. And the nose wing has enough air coming off of it, kind of deflecting things as well, that you would think, it's just, it was meant to hit him, because it took a pretty good trick to get it all the way in there and get him in the schnoz like it did.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then thankfully he's okay. But I mean, I think the 800-pound gorilla in the room is a rock screen. Might have helped out quite a bit.
Without a doubt. I never liked them though.
Yeah, I know
I'm with
a
you.
lot of people don't. A lot of people don't like them. I found that at first I didn't like anything in front of me, but then I pretty much found that once I got rolling, I just didn't see it. It just wasn't even in my vision.
True. You get running, and it's not there. And you know, Razz, I got a Razz on you here. A rock to the schnoz is not necessarily going to hurt your looks.
Oh, that's one good of it.
Oh, nice.
Damn it, man.
I think Andy just going to become the 7th member of this group here. Yeah, just
Really?
have one every weekend.
How often are
He's
you
like,
available on Monday nights? Because you could join the party anytime.
My grandpa taught me when I was little never to be a member of any club, group, or organization that would have me as a member. So I think you guys have pretty low standards.